Today, under understanding our day to day experiences, so I experience, and what is this I? It is a conventional self built by the continuous interplay of perception, knowledge, and experience. For example, how likes and dislikes, pain and pleasure, happiness and unhappiness, frustration and failure are formed and maintained by this cycle. And in the following sessions, we will understand how to become free from all these dualities. What exactly is the nature of I? Does it change? When I say I perceive, I know, I experience, what exactly is this? So we will also see that are we separate and different from the mind and mental perception and the experiences taking place in the mind? Why? To have a clear step by step understanding of how a personal identity is constructed. Rigorously prove the proposition that we know ourselves by these three elements of perception, of knowledge, of experience. And we have to find out how to bridge the gap between psychological self understanding and so called spiritual inquiry, as explained by great masters in the Eastern wisdom. So, at the surface level, what happens? We should recognize the cyclical nature of self construction. It begins with perception, experience, knowledge, and the feedback loop. It is very important to deeply understand while the mind accurately processes information based on its framework. You know, my house will remain the house as it is, but my perception about the house is a good house, it's a bad house, it's a high rise, low rise. That perception and that mixture comes from the mind. So we have to understand how it builds a conditional self so that we can have a right perception. Our lives are indeed an intricate dance of perceiving, knowing, and experiencing. While these processes allow us to function and grow in the world, no doubt about it, they also constructed a sense of the self. So it means based on my experiences is different from the experiencer. And still we constructed a sense of the self that is inherently conditioned and impermanent. Why it is temporary? Because all experiences changes. When we mistake this constructed I with its likes and dislikes, its pain and the pleasures, its successes and failures for our ultimate reality, we inevitably encounter suffering. The mind, in its diligent work of perceiving rightly based on this limited self definition. What is the limited self definition? I am rich, I am poor, I am good, I am bad, I reacted, I have a habit. Oh, you see that millions of those experiences. Beyond that, the true freedom and the lasting peace arise not from altering our perceptions, knowledge, or experiences, but from recognizing who it is that perceives. We never answer, we take it for granted. The moment, since our birth, we have taken for granted that I am the body and the mind. So the question always remains unanswered by the science, the real self, or so-called the constructed self. Because I'm talking on Eastern wisdom, so I differentiate from the very beginning the real and the false selves, perception, knowledge, and experience. We have to explore that. What is the fundamental premise about how we know ourselves in a conventional sense, and then we will go how to know ourselves through the Eastern wisdom. The fundamental premise is that our conventional sense of the self, our personal identity, is largely constructed and maintained by our perceptions, what we say the direct perception through the sense organs, and the mind behind processes that information. I get the knowledge, and that leads to my experience. It is dynamic. It has to be. Ongoing narrative created by our mental processes, constantly being updated and reinforced. We have also to answer that, however, does the perception contribute to our self-knowledge? Or is the very perception is the self-knowledge? Normally, we say that perception refers to direct sensory input and our mind's immediate interpretation. It contributes to self-knowledge in several ways. Our perception. Where I perceive the body, and then there is a physical self. So once I understand the physical self, we perceive our body through the sight. I have a gray hair looking into the mirror. I have a sense of the touch, etc., etc. And then we also understand our perception of the emotional state. I feel happy right now, I feel nervous, I'm frustrated. These are also because I've been using the false eye to categorize that I'm nervous or I'm happy or depressed. And then we also identify ourselves with action. We perceive ourselves performing actions like I'm talking to you, I'm walking, or I'm typing. So we have to understand. I'm just laying a foundation that this series will help you understand the mind, brain, consciousness, the journey, clear understanding of the journey of the meditation, mindfulness, what the Eastern wisdom says, what the science refutes, and the science does not have the sound basis to refute what the Eastern wisdom says about real self and about the self-discovery. What are many practices which are labeled as rites and rituals? Even the science does rites and rituals. In these rites, but they do it with a reasoning. So the Eastern wisdom also demands that you should perform these practices, which should not be taken as a rites and ritual, but it provides you the reason. We will also discuss that role of the knowledge in forming our self-identity. In our personal history, we go back and we build our personal history, memories of the past actions, successes and failures, roles and labels, beliefs in self, external feedback, and still we fail to acknowledge that there is something beyond all these labels, that what I am. We'll discuss in these series. How do experiences shape our self knowledge? That is also an important question to answer, not only from the scientific perspective, but also from the real self. Experiences basically refer to the actual living through of events, interactions, internal states over time. That experiences. Now, I had an experience in the past, maybe 5 years ago, of stress. So I carry forward and I built my real self. That is not what the self is. They are the raw materials from which perceptions and knowledge are derived and continuously updated. So basically, our self identity or the constructed I goes through many trial and error, emotional responses in the past, relationship, and you can add the scientific aspect, inherent nature, DNA, long list. But still, all are not me, all are not what I am. So we have to explore what exactly is, when I say I perceive, I know, I experience. I is the common factor, but what I know I don't experience. What I experience I don't perceive, etc. etc. There are hundreds of permutation and combinations, and that leads to a lot of confusion, and it brings an continuous nature of suffering that includes our anxiety, fear, duality, conflict, long list. We have to understand, we have to get rid of this. How does this cycle How does the cycle of perception, experience, and knowledge lead to the formation of our constructed I or conventional self, which the Eastern wisdom says it is the false I? And this false I includes the raw sensory input, it includes the perception. For example, perception of the heart melt with the love or racing heart, nervousness or happiness, experiences, knowledge from the different sources, knowledge from the experiences, and the feedback loop. We will discuss about how does the mind perceiving rightly, I'm just saying rightly, within this framework causes suffering. If I experience what I claim that I have a right perception, so my right perception should lead to right knowledge and right experience, but it doesn't happen. Especially in relationship to the likes and dislikes, pain and the pleasure, happiness and unhappiness, and frustration and failure. So we have to explore not only our mind, the nature and the function of the mind in relationship to the problem of identification, desire for control, inevitable change, with reference to likes and dislikes, pain and the pleasure, happiness and unhappiness. We will also explore in this series what are the limitations of this conventional self-knowledge from a deeper spiritual perspective coming from the Eastern wisdom. Eastern wisdom simply says that real self is a pure consciousness. I'm warning, cautioning you. The way science says it's a hard problem of the consciousness. So we don't use the consciousness the way the science uses. We don't say that consciousness is a product of the brain or the grey matter. How it is possible? What does it mean? It simply means the grey matter is inert. It does not know itself and it does not know others. But the very consciousness reflected through the mind knows it. So it means this consciousness is the product of something that is inert. And if it is the product of the inert, then the inert matter does not have that property of knowing oneself and others. How it knows, how it can produce the consciousness that knows oneself and the others. We will understand that. Basically, it's a problem of the false I and the real I. And the experiential understanding of the real I is what is known as awakening and mindfulness. So basically we will also understand the ultimate message or insight derived from the understanding this relationship between the real self or the false I, perception, knowledge, and experiences. Once we understand that, basically when the science says it's a hard problem of the consciousness, who says it? It is my mind says. So, or it is the consciousness that says it's a hard problem of the consciousness. But a consciousness, we know that consciousness, how consciousness can say it. So that means when Eastern wisdom argues and puts the reason, how the consciousness can say it. So who is saying it? The consciousness reflected through the mind is saying it. Why the mind says it? Because the mind gathers the information, its perception, knowledge, and experiences from the world outside, and it constructs the false I. That is saying it is the hard problem of the consciousness. But how the consciousness can say that it's a hard problem of the consciousness, how the sun can say it's a hard problem of the sunlight and the rays. Do you bring the candlelight to see the sun? No. That sun makes us aware of the entire world of objects, things. I'm just using a metaphor. Sun is a pure consciousness. And so it means in the light of the sun, I know each and every object in the world. My perception, my knowledge, my understanding develops. But how to know the sun? I don't need a candlelight. So then how I know the sun? I know the sun by the sunlight. So now come to the conclusion. The conscious knows the consciousness by itself, by its own light, because mind does not have a light. Mind is a grey matter. Mind is inert. How do you know that mind is inert? In deep sleep, mind is not there, but consciousness is there. That point here, Eastern wisdom says that we are using the pure consciousness or pure awareness or real self or I-ness, that consciousness. So there is no problem with the heart. There is no hard problem with the consciousness. It is an easy solution. We are going to talk about this. Thank you for listening.